Hey there, welcome. If you've ever wrestled with brittle workflows, you'll love this. Unmeshed gives our user detailed monitoring when you need it, the ability to scale without limits, and reliable operations that just work. Let's jump in. All right, let's take a look at this use case. We need to call this 3 different endpoints. One is reviews, one is recent, and one is you may also like. YMAL in short. Now pass an SKU ID and get the data that comes back from these endpoints, and then aggregate them back in this JSON form. These APIs also require an API key, which is stored as a secret in this. So let's see how we can do this in Unmeshed. To do this, let's go to Unmeshed, click on Add, and then here we can do our Demo API Aggregation as the name. And let's pull in 3 different endpoints that we can call. Let's start with the first one. Let's call this, then we'll look at our spec here. The first one is reviews. But let's just copy this endpoint, and we're going to go here, and then put that endpoint right here. So in this case, we have a parameter called SKU ID. And let's put that as something that comes from the context.input.SKU ID. There you go. And we can remove that from here. So we've configured the first parameter, and we also need to store the AVI key, which comes from here. So there you go. That's also there. Let's quickly test this by saving this and running a test. All right, I think I know what's going on. So we didn't provide the input code. So let's do that. And this time it worked great. So we saw there was an error, and we noticed there was a missing parameter, and we went to test it. We went back and added that, and it worked. So let's add the other 2. So let's go back here, and let's call this one reviews. And now we need to copy and paste these 2. One is going to be recent, and let's put that in. This is the API key, and the parameters are the same, so we don't have to change that. And the last one is you may also like. And again, everything else is the same. So all we're doing is changing the endpoint. Let's save this and run this. So now we're trying all 3, and it's getting the data for all 3. So let's look at the rest of the requirement, which is to assemble them in this shape. So to do this, it's pretty easy. We just need to go back to our definition, and we can add a JavaScript task, which takes the output of this. So if you look at the sample output that we've generated so far, we can take the response and then put that in the JavaScript task. You can also call this as output. And still for reviews, we have the value that comes from the reviews task. We can also do the same thing for recent. And again, let's go and add the last one. For you may also like. I think for you may also like, we need to use a different, then you can, same syntax. There you go. The spelling is big. Now we have also organized the output in the same shape that we wanted it to be. Let's save this and run it. And if you look at the final output here, we've got the reviews, the recent data, and the you may also like. And that's how simple it is to kind of aggregate data sets across different APIs. Take a look at this definition. We are running 3 steps in sequence, but they have no correlation between each other. So we can actually run this in a parallel step. So let's do that. Let's drag and drop a paddle step here, and then rearrange the steps that we already ran into the paddle step, and then go. Finally, after the parallel step is executed, we gather the output. So we'll save this and run this, and as you can see, it runs exactly the same way. So we get the output now much faster than before, since we no longer have to wait for 3 calls in sequence. But we're doing it in parallel. So if you look at the timeline, it overall takes roughly the maximum API's time, about 49 milliseconds is what it took, for the whole response to come back. And that's the power of using an orchestration platform. You're able to rearrange the steps in whatever query plan you want it to be. and thereby getting the maximum value out of the speed and performance of the underlying system. And that wraps up today's demo. With Unmeshed, your workflow runs smarter and scales effortlessly. Want to keep learning? Head over to our docs for deeper dives or subscribe for upcoming videos. Until next time, happy orchestrating!